Hello and welcome to another edition of Video Games to the Max. I am your host, Sean Garmer. Here with me, as usual, Mr. Mark Morrison.
Howdy.
And I didn't purposely delay this show for any reason. Just have a lot of things going on, but obviously not been looking forward to having to talk about this Microsoft treachery, terribleness, whatever you want to call it, closing down for Bethesda Studios. We're going to get into all that, the Sarabon mess of an interview that happened afterwards, which I'm sure was scheduled way before they were supposed to do that. All of the things that go on with this whole Xbox thing. Mark will probably talk about some more Stellar Blade. And Nintendo actually has good news, so we'll get into that too, I guess. So let's get on with it right after whenever I can find the actual button.
You are listening to Video Games to the Max.
All right, so just happy Mother's Day, everybody. Everybody's moms out there. Your mom, Mark.
I had a caller after this.
Yeah. We started a little bit later because I had to call my grandma that left to Arkansas and all that, and I was like, "Oh, let me make French toast and all that this morning." So, okay, well, I guess we're doing that right now because I'd already given her all the stuff last night, like when it turned 12 or whatever. Yeah. So, but let's go ahead and get into the housekeeping really quick, just to get that out of the way. If this is your first time watching or listening, or 100th time, we do appreciate you. Please know that you can watch live. Normally, we do this on Fridays, like around 12:30 to 1. Sometimes we do have to delay, but it will show up on YouTube on demand there. So you can go watch on YouTube later if you subscribe to the channel. It helps us out because you not only get what we do here with Video Games to the Max, but you get our other shows as well. You got Otaku Cafe that does all of the new animes. Every time there's, they basically just go through the season and they review the stuff that they like. So if you're one of those who likes to keep up with the new anime, they're a really good show to watch. And then also you got the Rather Broadcasting folks that they did the movie reviews and TV show reviews and all of that stuff. And they've been hitting it with, they got the Shogun review already out there, the Knuckles review, which I still haven't watched. I need to watch that.
Watched about half of it so far.
We could talk about it, I guess, some. And they did the Fall Guy review as well. So if you've been looking to forward to any of those shows or movies and you want to get like a sort of in-depth review with a crew of folks, they do an awesome job. So make sure you go watch them. And of course, you can also, if you prefer to just listen on demand on podcasts, you can do that too. Just subscribe to whichever show you want or subscribe to all three. That'd be awesome. Go leave a review there. And, listen on whatever podcast thing that you like to listen to. So that being said, we might as well not delay. Let's just get into the big news of the entire week. This has been the week, really. And honestly, when you have earth-shattering news like this with the Xbox, it kind of just it made me not want to really think about playing something else for a while, because to me it's just it's absolutely ridiculous. You buy all these studios, then you go and shut a bunch of them down. It feels like once again you're not having messaging that you should. You tell us one thing earlier when you have that big old that thing that you weren't supposed to have, that everybody got mad because you were going to do the putting 4 games on PlayStation, and then you come out and just do this out of the blue, out of nowhere. It feels like obviously y'all had to take time behind closed doors to make this decision, but you just announce it like that and have it leak like that. It's just absolutely terrible for these studios involved. So let me just break a lot of this stuff down, and then we can just talk about it instead of like going point by point, whatever. So the studios that got shut down, Arkane Austin, which is Redfall, basically. That's the last game that they made. You know, they also made Prey. Tango Gameworks, which Hi-Fi Rush, the most stellar game that they've had that's not named Forza in a while. And you know, you can throw Pentiment or some other ones in there,
Like,
but
well, high profile or
yeah, it's the one that won all the awards, right? The one game that they've been able to outside of like Forza Horizon 5, maybe winning something. Alpha Dog, which they're the ones that did the Mighty Doom, and that kind of got Doom into like, you know, younger players' hands or whatever. It's a smaller thing, but still, they were doing something. And then Roundhouse, that was kind of like a support studio. Roundhouse is actually getting, they're getting like assimilated into ZeniMax online, so they're gonna go and do the like Bethesda Elder Scrolls Online thing, all that.
yeah.
So they're not losing their jobs, but they're consolidated. Whatever they were doing is not what they were going to be doing originally. So still, it sucks to have to see them, you know, go through that. Not to mention, it's like you just hit it like a ton of bricks. So you have these figureheads from these studios, like the figurehead from Arkane Leon, just being like, "Oh, this is just a gut stab because the way you did this." And then you have Matt Booty. He's the one that wrote this whole letter, right? That's tells them, okay, well, this is why we're doing it. Oh, the typical BS about, oh, well, we got to think about growth and we got to think about the what's best for business, basically, and focus our games on priority games and invest in other parts of Bethesda and invest in other parts of our studios. And then he comes on and goes, but we need smaller games that win awards. That's what we need. Do you guys like not pay attention to what you say before you say it? Did Matt Booty not run this through somebody? Because you just contradicted. I mean, they contradict themselves all the time, but he contradicts.
Right.
Okay. Then Sarah Bond goes on. Now let's be honest. This Bloomberg Tech Summit thing, I'm pretty sure that originally when this was made for her to show up or for Microsoft to be on here and Xbox to be a part of it, originally they weren't going to talk about this. I imagine that this was made months ago, right? But Sarah Bond, whoever it is that runs the PR, like, y'all got to know this question is going to get asked, right? It just happened. Everybody in gaming is talking about it. Anybody that goes on any social media is seeing it. And her response is, it's always extraordinarily hard when you have to make decisions like that. You know, being flat last year, the whole industry. I'll go back to what I was saying about it. When we look at those fundamental trends, we feel a deep responsibility to ensure that the games we make, the devices we build, the services we offer are there through moments, even when the industry isn't growing and you're through a time of transition. And we got to do this for the health of the long term. It says nothing. Absolutely nothing. And, you know, she goes on to talk about other stuff. They're gonna make the Microsoft Store for mobile, and it's gonna show up on web at some point. That's all fine and dandy. Then you have Mikey Barra coming in and being like, "Oh man, we got to feel sorry for Phil Spencer because he's taking this harder than everybody else."
That was particularly funny, I thought.
And the guy that left before we even had any integration between Activision-Blizzard-King or whatever, the guy that decided to take his ball and go home, is the one sitting here talking about how everybody gonna feel. I'm gonna feel bad, and we should all feel bad for Phil Spencer. I'm sorry, man. I don't feel bad for Phil Spencer. I don't feel bad for you. I don't feel bad for any of the executives at all. We'll talk about them in a second. You know, they Arkane Austin was apparently going to be doing an offline mode for Redfall. Like, this was the next thing, along with working on that DLC. Now that DLC is not happening, the offline mode is not happening. They're supposedly going to keep it going for the people that are still playing this game, but who knows? how long that's going to happen, because now you still have to be online
for the next 2 months. It'll be online.
Yeah, so you don't get the big update that they wanted. You just close it before you get the final thing. And the only good thing besides the, I guess maybe the Microsoft Store happening for the mobile, is that Fallout 4's next gen update is going to be available as we're recording this tomorrow. So
no, it's already available. But when they released it originally, they fucked it all up. So now they have to,
right, they're
patch
like
it.
re-releasing it or
Yeah.
whatever on Monday. So I'll let you go ahead, because I'm about to like go off on this whole thing. As somebody that's been the big Xbox supporter in the room, I'm just pissed. Go on.
I think this shows. I mean, you won't like when I say this, but kind of an abject failure of Game Pass.
No,
'Cause,
you're
like,
not wrong.
if
You're
that
not
was
wrong.
doing well, they'd keep the studio. Some of the studio. I mean, I could see a case for them shutting down the one mobile studio, because like, who cares? Or that support studio.
Right, but I mean, it helps. It's still people. They're at least not
Right.
losing their jobs or whatever. But the other three were doing stuff. And supposedly Tango was already pitching another game.
That's the
Yeah.
weird thing to me, actually, the Tango one, because Hi-Fi Rush was good. It was a smaller game, but still good. Shouldn't they have been working on something else?
I
Like,
mean,
they're
yeah.
pitching something, but it's like that. It's not like, okay, we released Hi-Fi Rush, now we can sit on our ass for the next year or 6 months, or
Well, I
whatever.
mean,
Like,
they were working on it for a while. Maybe they had, it's not like they just go from one thing to another. They got to pitch it to the Microsoft people, because that game they were working on, that was before the acquisition.
yeah.
So, this was something that like Microsoft inherited, just like Redfall, and it turned out that this one was actually good.
Yeah,
Unlike Redfall.
Yeah.
So, like go. I mean, what do you think about this whole mess? Like, just there's no point to this, right? You're Microsoft. You make a bunch of money. Of all the people that should not be laying off studios and closing studios, it should be them, right?
Yeah, but it's like, why doesn't it's almost like the Mike Ibarra quote, like, what? Yes, they're making a bunch of money, but then once someone think of the poor shareholder, because to keep the studios open, they might have to lose a point on that.
No, I mean that's the thing, is his whole thing about the shareholders.
Yeah.
The shareholders, Phil. Look, I'm tired. I'm tired of Phil at this point. I'm tired of the figureheads, the executives coming on and talking all wax poetic about, oh,
Well,
this is the best place to make games, and we let people
no,
do what they want. Go ahead.
that's the thing, is it's only Xbox that does that. Like, Sony has they had Jim Ryan, but he never really did that. Like, he did it like on occasion, but he wasn't like this evangelized figure that Phil has been. And Nintendo damn sure doesn't do that. Like, they have the CEO come out, like, maybe occasionally, but not, very rarely, let's say. So I think Microsoft wanted to have that like cult of personality around, Phil, but they've also done it before with like Major Nelson, or even disastrously Don Matrick. And
Yeah.
yeah.
No, but I mean, look, Major Nelson, that was because he hosted the podcast. He had that
Right,
live show that they
he
did.
was supposed to be the figurehead. I mean, yeah, but
the thing with Phil, and then by extension Matt Booty and Sarah Bond now, especially Phil, is
yeah.
he talks out of both sides of his mouth. He says one thing, it seems like Microsoft, the figureheads at Microsoft tell him one thing, and then he goes and says something completely different after he talks to somebody else from Microsoft, has an interview with The Verge and says something completely different there. It's like it's never consistent. This is the entire problem with Microsoft. They are so contradictory. Phil is so contradictory to everything he says, and this is the fruit of all of it. I'm done. I'm done trusting them. I have no trust. I have no trust in Xbox. I fear for Hellblade 2 because that game is not going to do.
Yeah, no offense to Ninja Theory, but within 6 months they're going to be toast.
I hope
or
not.
Within,
I
within
hope
like
people,
a year, whatever.
I mean, it's possible this game could win awards, and maybe that breaks that now that Matt Booty has set it out in the open, right? Because apparently whatever Tango Gameworks and Hi-Fi Rush won doesn't count, right?
Yeah,
it's only after he said it.
They only won a DICE award and a game award, and all this
other stuff. Everything. They won an award at pretty much everything. Maybe it's not Game of the Year, but it's an award. Damn it! You could put that on the. And look, I know Xbox doesn't sell game boxes anymore. They want to sell everything digital, but you can put that on the front of the when you go try to find that game on your online store. You could put it all over the PlayStation store when you try to find that game now because that game's on PlayStation. Like, this is stuff that can get people to play this game. I get it that it's not the system seller, but you're saying it's one of your smaller games and you're contradicting yourself and saying, oh, we need smaller games that win awards. Bro, that game just won awards. That is your one Japanese studio, and you throw it away. Why would any Japanese, if I'm Atlus right now, unless Xbox is just going to continue to back up the truck, which I guess maybe they will, because if they can get that deal for Persona 6 to come day and date on Xbox, okay, cool, whatever. I don't know how much money they got to spend for that to happen. But if I'm Atlus, if I'm Sega, I'm looking at that and going, wow, they could have chosen other studios, but they chose a Japanese one, right? I don't remember her name right now, but the person that they chose to be like the person that talks to Japanese studios right now, you just lost one of your a pillar that you had to be able to say, hey, we have a Japanese studio and they made the best game that we had for a while. So it makes no sense whatsoever to get, like, was there not another studio that you could have chosen? Was there not something that you could have done to keep them along, even put them in as a support studio while they try to figure out what game they were going to do next that you actually approve of? Because apparently they were pitching a game that was going to take like 3 or 4 years to make. I don't know what it was. They're not probably never going to tell us. And they didn't want to deal with that. They want stuff made like faster, I guess, or I don't like, they want stuff that can be made faster. And it doesn't work like that. We all see that, how these big games, even the mid-sized games, they take 3-4 years to make, and I don't know, unless you have, even Hi-Fi Rush is it was a modest hit, but now I'm starting to believe the stuff that Jeff Grubb put out like not too long ago, where he says, as far as people I've talked to, Hi-Fi Rush was a failure, right? And it sucks to see that because it makes no sense. Hey, Crafty, it's ridiculous. Exactly. They are just a tone deaf, soulless company. They honestly ought to just call it the Microsoft box at this point. Just call it the Microsoft box. It's no longer Xbox. Phil Spencer is just somebody that takes orders from Satya Nadella and gets told, okay, this is what is the big deal now. And that's what we're doing. Everything else, if it ain't going to make money, we're not doing it. They've now become just another company inside of Microsoft. This whole thing about they're so creative and they're so whatever. How long before they start pulling the plug on the ID at Xbox stuff? How long until they pull the plug on Game Pass? Let me ask you a question, Mark.
Shoot.
Where do you stand on the whole Call of Duty thing? Because I feel like they're stuck in a situation where it's, you pick one, you pick the other, you lose. Do you put it on Game Pass? Do you not? What happens?
I would say put it on Game Pass, because then it'll show that, like, oh, everyone's playing it, or it may drum up some business on Game Pass. But Game Pass isn't growing, or if it is, it's 1% or whatever, or
Right.
very small. Like, it'll grow Game Pass a little, but not to what they want it to, and because like they have the insane belief that like 150% of the gaming population should be on Game Pass, or whatever. Everyone should be on Game Pass. It's like that's not
Right.
feasible for a lot of people, either because they don't want it, like me, like physical gaming, or they can't afford it, or the game selection isn't there.
And
So
it's not even about can't afford it. It's the same thing that's happening with all streaming. Do you
yeah,
use it enough to justify paying $17 a month for something that you do not use? If you don't play a
well,
game on it at all, why are you buying? Why are you paying for it?
yeah. I mean,
You know?
actually, I talked with Jens about it because he has Game Pass, but he has
Right.
it for like Baldur's Gate 3, which he already owns. So
Yeah, but
he's gonna,
Baldur's Gate's not on there. Like it's like you're whether you have it for like, let's say you have it because okay, Hellblade's coming, right? So you need the
yeah,
subscription because okay, Hellblade 2 is a game that I want to play. Cool. Um, but that's fine. Then what after that? All right, but what
right,
if you don't? So here's the thing: like, we know we've talked about this a bunch of times. Call of Duty is a game that people that do not play games buy to play with their friends. Okay, cool. I can now get my friends. I can get more friends to play without having to pay $70. But the problem is now you're getting a lot of people that are not going to pay the $70 at all and just play it off Game Pass, and you lose the one, not one, they have some other ones, but the one game that you can put it out there and it's good. People are going to go buy it in droves. So you're going to get people that are going to subscribe to Game Pass, right? This is the
yeah,
one game that you have that's going to get people to sit there and oh, okay, I'm going to subscribe, right? But then, like every other service, they're going to unsubscribe. And then, what did you really gain? You know,
right. You gain like
and
the one
yeah,
one or 2 months of high numbers, and that's about it. Mhm.
yeah, exactly. What press are you going to get? Is it worth it for you to lose the number one game that sells every year in all of gaming to put it on Game Pass? Or do you want to have that one game that you know consistently will sell? And that's the problem is if you don't put it on Game Pass, I'll tell you right now, the doom and gloom that is going to happen because we've all been, I as a Game Pass subscriber for the longest time, I've had it for like 3 years or more. We've all been told every single first party game goes on Game Pass day one. So if you take that off and you start saying, but this game's too big.
Right.
Okay, so what's the barometer of what's too big, what's too small? Like that's a bad situation, that you're gonna put yourself on. Yeah, why? I'm gonna tell you why, because they do not want Diablo. I think is one that like, okay, it's persistent online, like it's one that's like made for people to play co-op. You want to revive that game with season that's coming. The other games, they don't want to put too much stuff on Game Pass, I feel like, until they're completely done with the FTC. When they're completely done with the FTC, I think we're going to start seeing a rollout of Activision stuff on Game Pass. They don't want to draw anybody's attention from the FTC at all to be like, hey, look, they're making money off this Activision stuff. Let's start, trying to actually use our brain and find a reason why they shouldn't have this deal go through. Because I feel like the FTC is still not using their brain as to why they're fighting at all. But to go beyond this, I feel like also it's just I get it as a figurehead. You're not gonna say like, oh man, we really didn't want to do this, but we closed these studios because whatever the actual real reason was, you're not gonna say that because that's the first
Yeah.
you know
The funny thing is you're attributing all this like to Phil Spencer, but it's like he's like high at the totem pole, but he ain't the leader of of Microsoft in general. Like
well,
it's
he's not,
all
but the reason
you
why I'm
know,
saying is because Phil's the one that talks. Right?
yeah,
Phil's the one that opens his mouth and says things and then ends up contradicting himself. And
Right.
that's why they shouldn't talk. That's why they should just go be like you said, be like Nintendo, be like Sony, stop talking and start doing. And that's the thing. They talk way too much. They talk and tell you they're going to do this and then do this and this. And it's like now this thing that they're going to have in June, I'm not that hyped for it anymore because how many of these games are going to actually like still be existing in 6 months or whatever? Because I'm really worried about what's going to happen in Ninja Theory. I'm really worried about what's going to happen to Obsidian because Avowed is probably not going to light the world on fire.
Right.
I mean, there's a chance it could, right? But I don't think it's going to. And Indiana Jones, I'm sure it will get people to maybe give it a pay attention.
It's what Sarah Bond remembers watching as a kid. So
yeah, I mean, it's just like that's the thing is like Indiana Jones already the movie didn't do well. Like that franchise is not in the best state. It's possible that like Fallout, the game could cause a revival for it, maybe, but maybe. But it's just there's nothing coming in that Xbox slate right now, at least for this year, that makes me go, okay, I think those studios are secure right now.
Right.
I mean, I feel like it is fine because you probably got the next Doom going on, like whatever that is. You're probably fine. We know that Playground's fine because they're still in Fable. But
I think if Microsoft actually had the balls to shut down id, like the internet would riot. Because you can make the argument like Tango. I mean, they made Hi-Fi Rush and Evil Within 1 and 2, but they weren't like a story developer with essentially starting the first person genre.
But it's still important because it was your one Japanese studio. It was the one studio that had made anything of note that wasn't a franchise you already had big things with.
Problem with Tango a little is also like, Mikami left.
Yeah.
So it didn't have that like lineage that it used to, or that
right. And so whatever you make afterwards is not going to have his name attached to it. So if they wanted to make an Evil Within 3, now you're not going to have that creative force with him there of saying, okay, this is where we're going with that. And the thing too with Tango, I feel like is we all love the shadow drop, right? Yeah. I don't think the shadow drop does it any favors when you're talking about outside of the box that we all live in here with social media and everything with gaming. When you're trying to push that out to the people that don't use their console every day and aren't on the internet constantly looking at gaming stuff, I think they have no idea that game exists because there's no marketing behind it. There's nothing out there putting commercials for it and stuff like that. It's just, hey, it's there, cool, and maybe you find it if you happen to use Game Pass that day, but they didn't do that game any favors with that either,
Yeah, I was joking on Twitter about because I think they said they're going to make good for the Redfall.
Yeah, the Redfall DLC.
Yeah, and it's like, what are they going to do? They're either going to offer like, oh, you get a month or two of Game Pass for free, or they'll be like, oh, we can give you Starfield for free or something, some other crappy game, or something that we already own, as opposed to actually making just having them finish the damn.
Like I didn't understand that either. Like, why not just let them finish out the DLC? At least let that game kind of glow out in a blaze of glory or something. You said you were gonna. I mean, obviously this is Pete Hines before he left, but this is him saying like, "Hey, we're gonna try to have this game still last."
Be around for 5 years or a decade or whatever. Yeah,
that's the thing. It's just like, I think a little bit of transparency, a little bit of honesty would go a kind of a certain way in that, hey, it's cool that Phil went out and just basically, said what he needed to say on that kind of funny S-cast or whatever. But it's like, again, every time you get one of them saying something, they contradict themselves again, because then Microsoft comes and pulls the plug on it or whatever, or says, hey, we're not doing that anymore. And I feel like this has all come down to that Activision Blizzard thing that it took way too long to close. So gaming was in a different spot in 2021, right? When this whole thing happened, this is almost 3 years ago at this point, gaming was in a boom period, right? So they're thinking about all the money they're going to make, all the stuff they're going to be able to do with all these studios. And then it takes them almost 3 years. They're still dealing with it. 3 years of trying to close this freaking deal, right? They're not even fully integrated. Bethesda's not even fully integrated with Xbox yet. If they're doing that at all, it's just.
I think that is Bethesda one is because like they didn't want to be, or like they could have done it a lot quicker, but they were like, we'll just keep it hands off. It's like, well, look how well that worked out for you.
But it's not even the hands off. It's the whole point of like, okay, well now we made $70 billion of money. So somebody at Microsoft goes, oh, okay. You're letting this company that doesn't really make that much money spend $70 billion on this game publisher. Excuse me, let me start running the numbers.
Right.
You start getting attention from other places at Microsoft that you weren't getting attention for before. And so now they start running the numbers and they go, oh my God, look how much we're spending on this, on this, on this. Oh, well, let's start cutting. We're going to start cutting because this is not making money. This is not making money. Game Pass is freaking costing us I don't know how much money. Like, Phil can go around saying it's profitable, but there's a reason why they started getting down to the bottom of games that they put on that thing now. They can make these deals with these indies, and I'm sure they make deals with that ID at Xbox games that they put on there and stuff like that. And that's great. I love those indies. I love playing them. I was playing Animal Well before we started. That game is really cool. Like, I love those kind of things. But the problem is, those are like nice things to have on your service. They're like little things that you can go, oh, okay, it makes, as a gamer, it makes me want to keep Game Pass. You never know when you're going to get surprised with a little game like that. The Ayuden Chronicle thing, that was great too. But that's the problem. Like, I mean, I'm sorry, Animal was on PS Plus, but my whole point was that you get games like that. And those are really outside of the Xbox, like day one stuff. Those are the only games that are really like making that service worth it for people, unless you just do not play games at all. And you go on there, like, let's say you bought it for your, younger kid that's like getting into gaming and they see this big old library of stuff. And then it's like, oh yeah, cool. I get to play all this stuff. It's like, that's rare. Most of the people that are buying that thing already play games and already played a bunch of the big older games. So when they're looking at the new stuff that comes out, and it's very scarce now, what comes out that's actually new, like it's not helping you. It's only showing that there's less and less value for that thing. And if they go as far as taking now you're stuck with you can't do what PlayStation does, right? You can't go decide. It's like you sink or swim with Game Pass. It's either you completely, Game Pass is gone and it becomes PS Plus, and it's only old games, and maybe we'll throw on one of our games like every 6 months or so, and you don't have the day one stuff at all, or you keep going with that. And that's the problem, is that is a money sink that at some point I feel like somebody at Microsoft's going to go, we tried. It's a nice idea, but
just like the Zune.
Yeah, it's another fail. The Windows Phone. It's another thing that they had that worked. It's the thing that sets them apart. But that's the problem, is that like
and then they can say that like our vision was too forward thinking, and that's why
I mean, that's always their problem, right? Is that they're too forward thinking. They think like way out. And I mean, PlayStation was probably the one that did it correctly. They made it as an additive. They didn't make it as the only way for you to. It's not the only way. You can buy your games, but who's going to buy a game when you can just subscribe for $17 and have the same game? And then guess what happens? They'll tell you when it goes off, and you can go buy it on a sale if you really want it. If not, it's always there. You can just buy whenever the hell you want. So like, that's the problem, is, you gave people too much. And then now when you try to shut the door, you can't do it. And you put yourself in a hole where it's great that you can tell people that you have all these numbers about, oh man, look at all these players for Diablo 4 on Xbox Game Pass. Oh, that's cool. Except for, does this really do anything for our bottom line at all outside of just getting to boast the fact that we sold? Because when Helldivers 2 gets to talk about all these numbers that they do on Steam, and they have everybody get pissed off because they were going to do that PSN integration, I'd be pissed too, because that means I can't play a game that I bought, that I paid $40 for, right? When Xbox tells you they're just gonna take a game off Game Pass or whatever, it's not that big a thing, I feel like, and it doesn't mean that much to people because you get so used to not buying your game, and that's an issue that Microsoft and Xbox created with this, and so now you're trying to tell people to go spend the $70 or the $50, or I think Hellblade 2 is $50, right? Because it doesn't have the physical disc. Like,
right.
Are you really going to get those people to spend the $50 now when they can spend $17 and just play the game? Like, I don't know how that is a metric. You know, because Aaron Greenberg talked about how Hi-Fi Rush met all the metrics last year, right? And then somehow they're closing this studio. But what's going to happen with Ninja Theory is Hellblade 2 going to meet all the metrics too? And then Microsoft's going to go, oh yeah, but it didn't meet the metric that matters the most. And that's,
or even if it did, I'll be like shifting the goalposts. Like, it met it so far, but
exactly
down the line.
Is Phil going to have to come out again and say, oh, well, it didn't, the business is not, gaming's still not growing, so we had to close. And that's the thing, is there's reports where Bloomberg already put it out there that they're not done. There is going to be more stuff happening. There's going to be more cost cutting, probably more layoffs. They've already laid off like almost 2,000 people earlier in the year. Then we don't even know how many people are even laid off from all these studios that are being closed. Like, Microsoft and Xbox are just a mess. It's a mess right now.
I hate to say it, but I don't think Double Fine is long for this world either.
Yeah, I was going to respond to your tweet that please don't wish that on people, but it's like, I feel I really don't. I love Double Fine. Double Fine's one of my favorite studios.
Believe me, I don't want Double Fine to go away.
Yeah, I love the fact. Yeah,
they haven't made anything since Psychonauts 2, and
but that's the problem. Is like, would they greenlight anything besides Psychonauts 3 for them?
Right.
Like, where are we at with this creativity stuff?
The sad part is, at least maybe not the last generation per se, but like the 360 generation, like Double Fine has put on a game, multiple games every year.
Right.
Like, they put out from 2011 to 2014, they put out 4 to 5 games a year.
Right.
That's kind of a lot for like what they call, what they would say smallish developer, or
Yeah, but they also had like funding from like Majesco and other places.
No, not Majesco.
EA for Brutal Legend, right?
That was 2009.
Yeah.
But
yeah, still they had a lot of games, right? And then, but if you watch that documentary is amazing, by the way. If you haven't watched that Psych Odyssey documentary about how they made Psychonauts 2, you definitely should. It's long, but if you really want to know like how it is for game dev, like that is amazing. Go watch it. But honestly, that's my worry too with Double Fine, is like, you've already remastered all your old classics. You put out Psychonauts 2, the game people have been waiting on. If you're making it, unless they already have a game in development, which I'm sure they probably do, they're just, not announcing it because somebody finally got smart many years ago about like, let's not announce things that are like 5 years away. Right. But could they possibly cancel some of this stuff because this is happening, right? Like, where they're starting to go, oh, man, we got to slash here, we got to slash here, we got to cut here, because they gotta somehow make back that $70 billion, right? Call of Duty can't do it by itself. So like, where are you? Call of Duty can do a nice chunk of it, and that's the problem with putting it on Game Pass, is how much of that chunk is going to go away now because you do. So and like Crafty said, they're just hoping like Ubisoft said at the beginning of the year, that people just subscribe and forget about it and they keep paying. But the problem is people have so many subscriptions now, they do start paying attention.
Yeah.
Right. And they do start going, okay, I'm going to cut this off. I'm going to cut this off and cut this off. And then Game Pass, I mean, you can't do the thing where you used to start stacking up the dollar subs for Game Pass and then have it there for 3 years or whatever. I pay out of my pocket out of the 17, and then I pay the 17 for PS Plus Premium, which I really shouldn't, because premium is sometimes such a waste of whatever. It's $2. But the fact is, that's we're on the hardcore side of gaming. The people that are not, that are just picking it up for like the one game here and there or whatever, it's not really doing a lot. And so like when you look forward to, like, let's say we're looking at this thing in June, they're probably going to announce stuff that we haven't seen, right? There's going to be new stuff. I'm sure we'll probably get something Fable. Yeah, I'm sure we'll probably get something Fable related, since it's been long enough. I feel like
I'll show another CGI trailer, but not actual gameplay.
Yeah, like Perfect Dark at some point, like somebody's got to tell you what's going. Like that's another studio right there, right? Like we've seen nothing from Perfect Dark. That thing is apparently in horrible shape.
Yeah, I saw that interview with Grubb. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, like what are here, like Matt Booty, you're talking again. You're sending these letters out. What are you doing? What's going on with like all these? I feel like Xbox is, obviously they have other people, but they centered around these 3 people. They're the figureheads. And then it's like they grew way too big, and they don't have enough people to watch over everything. So like Matt Booty's supposed to be in charge of all this stuff, and it's like that seems like way too much stuff for one person. Like, shouldn't you have like other people at Xbox also like delineating, like, okay, you're working on this, like, go and figure out what's going on with all these games, and like what is the process, like what's the tail light here, what's the like future going on. I mean, okay, we're gonna get Gear 6, but that's what I worry about with Microsoft, is like you're so worried about, all these games are not making what you need to make. Like, how many franchises do you have that are really gonna, outside of Gears and outside of Call of Duty and whatever Blizzard is doing, that really like resonate with people, like the broad spectrum of gaming, that's really gonna push your systems and everything else? That's what I worry about. Like, these are all cool. Like, I love the fact that Avowed exists, and maybe Indiana Jones, but like I feel like a lot of the stuff that gets made by them is great from a gaming perspective, but you're talking about, we want to consolidate our franchise. We want to focus on the big stuff. Like Crafty mentioned, what big stuff is there really for you to focus on?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've been saying. Like this generation and even the last one, like their big stuff, quote unquote, didn't hit well, or like Halo 5 or Gears 5 or Halo Infinite rather.
Yeah.
And then all they got is Forza.
Yeah, it's Forza. You got to hope Fable actually knocks out of the park whenever it does come out. Who knows
now?
Well, I mean, I think that thing's been in development so long. If that doesn't come out by like 2025, I think we've hit something here where there's a failure on somebody's end. Like, at some point, you got to stop blaming the pandemic. You got to stop blaming this thing or that thing, or, hey, we inherited this and it's not our problem. Like, okay, so you didn't let Tango make the next game that would have been your problem, right? You didn't let Arkane Austin make the next game. They wanted to go back into like the immersive sim stuff, apparently. So I don't know. This is all a mess. I have no trust in Xbox right now. You can tell me that thing in June. You can announce a bunch of awesome shit. I'm going to get hyped, but I'm also not going to get too hyped because I don't know if any of that shit's coming out.
Yeah, unless they said, here's Gears 6. It'll be out November 14th. And they give like an actual firm release date.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only way you could kind of trust them, maybe. but
Right.
they've shown time and time again they announced stuff way too early, and then they just kind of dilly dally about, well, it'll eventually come out, like that
Right.
Perfect Dark thing.
I'm
And this,
also waiting for how many more games are going to wind up on PlayStation, because I feel like Satya Nadella's words were not him talking about how much he loved the fact that they took over the entire PlayStation store with a bunch of old games, and then games that they just released on there. I feel like that's a bit of foreshadowing. Like Starfield is coming. There's other games coming. Like this is not gonna finish.
they took over. They
Yeah.
took over the PlayStation Store for like a month or for
Right.
a few weeks, but it's not like a year-long thing.
No, it's not. But I'm saying that matters to him.
Right. Yeah, I know.
Right. Like you're making money somewhere that you weren't making money before, so let's do it more of it.
Right.
And I don't think that's gonna. I mean, maybe PlayStation moves the needle or something on one of these like live service things that they could have cooking or whatever. But other than that, they're not going to do things the other way. So this is Xbox, and only Xbox deciding to go down this route because they don't have another route to go. If you close up shop on everything that you've done consumer friendly, and you decide, okay, we're going to be like the other two guys, or I'm sorry, the other two console makers, I don't think you can do that. I don't think Xbox has the gravitas to be able to do that. I don't think they have the franchises, the ability to. You have Call of Duty, but again, Call of Duty is one game. You could buy Call of Duty and then you don't buy nothing else the entire year, and you're happy, you're good. That's my issue with it. Is like Xbox is stuck, and like the only thing they can do is hope to God one of these games that they make absolutely explodes, because other than that, I don't know, man. It just, the way things are going, it feels like Microsoft is just not that interest in like, let's be the cool gaming thing is not it. This is a business that, I mean, it always was a business, but they're not this whole like, we're going to be Mr. Nice people again, and be the, hey, we're all the bad stuff Sony and Nintendo do. We're not doing that. They're going to become just like the other two. Go ahead. Sorry.
This wasn't a Microsoft thing, but did you see that? Like, I think it was Vicarious Visions or whoever the hell made that Tony Hawk 1 and 2. Like, they pitched Tony Hawk 3 and 4, and Activision shut them down. Like, they should reverse that decision today, or as soon as they can. They should go back to the studio and go, hey, get to work on that thing instead. Like, not every Activision studio.
How many of those Vicarious Business people are actually still there? And then do you have the ability to unfurl them from Blizzard into Vicarious Business again to be able to do that? Right? Like, we don't know how integrated they are at this point at whatever they do at Blizzard. So
have Bethesda just put out Tony Hawk 3 and 4 instead.
Yeah, that would be insane, honestly. But
have Thrall skateboarding along with Tony Hawk.
Yeah, like to me, it's just this whole. I get the idea that Phil has always had about we don't want to just tell people you're going to make this, right? We want people to have passion behind whatever it is they're making. I feel like that's going to start not being the case either.
I mean,
Phil
can say that, but that's a load of crap, because they directly tell people, they directly tell studios what they should and shouldn't make, and like that's a problem that the coalition ran into with Gears 6. Like, they were like, oh, after Gears 5 we want to branch off, we want to do something else. It's like, well, that didn't work out,
right? They canceled
and then look at what happened to the state of the Gears franchise now.
Like, it's been dormant for a long time, so you got to hope now that people get hyped again with Gears 6. I feel like there's remasters or whatever coming for the other games. One got that remaster a long time ago, but I feel like the other ones are coming as well. It's not just going to be Gear 6. You got to get something that it can get out there faster for people to kind of get their hands. I mean, unless Gear 6, like you said, is going to come out this year or early next year, then maybe you don't need to do that. But you got to do something. It's like the Fallout situation that we've talked about a few times. That whole thing about supposedly Todd Howard's talking about external studios to do something with Fallout. if you're Microsoft, you got to make that happen. You got to get a Fallout game out faster than whatever it's like 10 years from now, because they're doing Elder Scrolls.
Yeah,
so
that sounds actually like coming down the pipeline anytime soon. Like that'll probably be 2017 or something like that, or 2027 rather. Hopefully, at least.
I mean, and that's the thing is like, you let Toys for Bob go, right? They're gonna do their own thing. Don't know what that is quite yet, right? And that's fine. You got a partnership with them, so I guess you technically don't have to be like paying underneath them all these employees. I guess to save you some money there as well. But like that again, everybody wanted them to be working on a Banjo-Kazooie,
right?
And now they're probably not. So you have that franchise sitting around.
That's another good example of like, why wouldn't you give people what they want?
Because according to Phil, they have to want to make it, right? He's not going to just tell them, okay, you know how to do this, so you're doing this, right?
Yeah, but he should have. Like that.
I feel like Microsoft is going to wind up coming around and going, oh, we have this franchise and they make this money and they have this, like, oh, somebody better get on that, right? Like, I don't know who's around. So I mean, we know Bobby Kotick's not there. We know Mikey Barr's not there. Like, are they gonna actually let the Activision people that are there actually like make some decisions and keep doing what they do, or are we like, it's all going to Phil and Matt Booty and Sarah Bond, and I get that, but it's just like, man, some of these decisions, all these decisions that they decide to make, have come to this point where we're at, where people are losing their jobs. That shouldn't be. This is a big company. They shouldn't be having to do that, but somebody, it's like, oh, we can blame it on the industry at large. And yes, this is an industry problem. There's an indie studio that closed. Paladin Studios, they had 45 people in the Netherlands, and they've been operating for 20 years. They closed. We've had a lot of studios close. We've had so many people get laid off. It's not just a Microsoft thing, but it's a shock, because these are studios that you barely just bought. This is not, I mean, yeah, it's like 5-6 years at this point, but still, they've released one game from Arkane Austin, the one game from Alpha Dog, and you didn't let them make something else. That's it, gone, right? And these games that I mean, Ninja Theory, this is the second Hellblade. They spent all this time doing this game. Man, I don't know. I just, maybe they can catch on with the God of War people, or people that think it's that kind of game and you can market it that way or whatever. But it's just like,
you mean a lot of people. Okay.
No, but I'm just saying, like, I'm trying to look at this in a big picture way of like, that game was an indie game that caught fire within the game industry. It was lauded for all this stuff. I'm sure Hellblade 2 will as well, and that might save it somewhat. But I feel like, are we just looking at that? Because this is now a AAA game studio, right? Like, oh, supposedly we made this in the same way that we made the other game. We just made it like bigger and grander, right? With the Microsoft money. It's still the same kind of game that it was, the first one was. How much is Microsoft looking at that and going, well, it's not hitting that metric? Like, are we going to start dropping people from Hellblade? Same thing when Avowed comes out. Does Avowed have any expectations on it? And how much is Obsidian gonna like suffer from that as well? It's like, I don't have any trust in this company to tell me that these studios are not going to continue to lose people, that that they're making games that are not going to eventually get canceled. I have no trust, no belief in anything that Xbox does at this point, other than, I really love Hellblade. I might actually go think about just buying it just to support instead of just playing it off Game Pass. I don't have that affinity for. Yeah, go ahead.
A salient point about Hi-Fi Rush is I would never get it on Game Pass or digitally, because they're eventually gonna have to like remove it.
Well, I mean, Hi-Fi Rush, until Limited Run came out with their thing, we had no idea that it was gonna have a physical version. So you can't go based on Hellblade 2 is not gonna have one at all. So you know, that's the thing is Microsoft's going in that direction. We're trying to do everything digitally.
But like, no, I meant like Hi-Fi Rush will have like a lot of licensing problems in the future with like music and stuff.
That's why they have the tracks that are not they're not licensed, right? That you can just turn on if you're streaming or whatever. So that helps them where they can just turn those off and they can keep having the game or whatnot. But yeah, it's one of these things where obviously a lot to come, but I feel like it's more bad news. You had a great developer direct that people were excited about. And then after that, once again, they just somehow continue to just step in mud and ruin the PR that they make with these showcases, with this stuff. When you have the backroom decisions, the company above them that just decides to, okay, now we got to start paying attention, and making all these acquisitions is great. But I feel like you're running into the problem of it's too much. It's too much, and you don't know how to like deal with all of it. And I feel like we're gonna get more of that as time goes on. But moving on here, how do I think the employees feel? If I'm honestly, this industry itself right now is so volatile, so terrible. Like, but I think it says a lot that Shinji Mikami said he was leaving the industry and then he comes back and he's going to do something with like, I think Konami or something. And it's like, wow, you did all that. You left Xbox. You're not even thinking about coming back there. They have the IPs that you work with. And then, if I'm anybody else at those studios, I'm sitting there going, do I need to start looking out for myself and start finding a way out the door before I'm the person next? Right. And man, it's like you thought that, okay, Xbox buying these studios means they have security, right? Microsoft has this money. They want these studios because they want to make games. They want to fill Game Pass with content. And it shows you that none of that matters. It's still capitalism at the end of the day. The number has to continue to go up, even though at some point it can't go up anymore. They got to make it go up. And that sucks. I feel so terrible for all these people, the ones that are there and the ones that are gone or will be gone at some point. It's terrible. It's terrible for this entire industry to be this way. It's going to keep being this way for a while. It's got to reset itself. But it's like when Microsoft is doing it, that's bad.
It's not like
it's
some
not
small company or
right. It's like when Sony announced the studios that they closed. It's like they really hadn't been doing much, right? It's like you said. It's like, okay, Roundhouse was a support studio, whatever. Alpha Dog, okay, you can say what you want. Even Arkane Austin, like you could sort of be like, okay, Redfall was bad for us. It was so bad. Right. We can't. How can we resurrect this studio at all? Like, there's not much we can do. But like the Tango Gameworks one makes absolutely no sense. I have no idea how this was the other studio that we had to choose to cancel. Oh, we don't want to green light the next pitch game. Like, you can't tell them go pitch something else so you can do faster. I don't know, man. It's just like that is the one that leaves the bad taste in your mouth. They make decisions that are bad all the time, and then this happens to them. And we're talking bad about Xbox again. I'm sitting where we're talking about an hour. That's enough. We talked about it for an hour. But you did mention Vicarious Visions earlier. You know what Vicarious Visions was also doing? They were making a Donkey Kong game on Switch. Not something else I would have thought of at that point. So they were at some point making a Donkey Kong game. Then that got canceled or didn't go forward after a while. And even Miyamoto was working with them on it, and he was giving ideas and everything else. Would you have wanted to see like what Vicarious Visions does with a Donkey Kong game? Like, that seems interesting. Like, have another different studio.
Well, it probably
doing.
wouldn't have been like traditional 2D. You know what they've been doing.
Well, it's a
Donkey
3D platformer, supposedly.
Yeah, it would have been like Donkey
Yeah.
Kong 64 2, or like a better version of that.
Yeah.
So as long as it had Cranky Kong in it, I'd have been happy.
Yeah, right. Like that's I think that's cool. I wish we could have seen actually I guess see a trailer or see what the concept would have been for that. That would have been awesome to finally
Well, even if they were at that stage, I mean, it might have just been like
right,
development docs or prototype art or
exactly.
something. Like not.
It could have been something that they were kind of thinking of or
Right.
like getting there, but they just weren't there yet, and then for whatever reason it got canceled. But that being to kind of bring that in, because I guess we're gonna move over to Nintendo. Nintendo finally, thanks to their president, kind of opened the door to what they're gonna be doing in the near future. They also announced some game sales, which were surprising to me, and they also announced a cool game that they're releasing on July 18th, Nintendo World Championships NES Edition. Now, this exists as a prize that they gave the people that were at that 1990 World Championship actually competing in it. They have that cartridge that you got, and it's one of the rarest things available. But now they're yeah, go ahead.
There's the gray cartridge and then the gold cartridge, and that's not even the more rare one.
Yeah. So they're actually doing, it's going to cost $30, but it's like a speed running thing. There's 150 speed running challenges that is divided across 13 games. All the Super Mario Brothers games, both the first two Legend of Zeldas, Kirby's Adventure, Metroid, like a lot of the big hits from the NES era. This is also, you could also consider it like an NES Remix 3, if you want to call it that as well. Look, I'm not a speedrunning guy, but I like those NES Remix games. I'd actually really think about this. It looks like it could be a lot of fun, and that's really cool that Nintendo's doing this. And they're also doing a special edition that has that gold cart, a replica gold cartridge as well.
Yeah, although I thought it was funny when people were pissed that because in the picture it's a gold cartridge is not a functional, cartridge. It's a display piece. And I thought
Yeah,
some people were pissed
exactly.
about that. It's like, are you fucking high? Of course it's not. You can't put it in an NES and play it, you idiots.
Yeah, how much money? We'd be paying way more for that special edition if it was an actual cartridge that you had to, buy.
Yeah.
And put in the system or whatever. No, of course not.
I think it's cool. I think it's cool that the Japanese version gets to control the two Joy-Cons.
Yes.
I'd rather have that personally, but
I'm surprised with how much they try to make money off the Joy-Cons. They're not bringing that worldwide or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's really cool that Nintendo's doing something like this. It's funny how you go, oh man, they don't really have a lot coming out. What could they really release? And they supposedly have a direct in June.
They release smaller projects. You
Yeah.
couldn't see Sony releasing this or Microsoft, obviously. Although a Microsoft one might be kind of interesting because it's how fast can you run through the Halo 1 first level, or something like that.
Yeah.
But neither of those companies has the kind of the lineage of Nintendo.
Yeah, that's the thing is think about it. This was 1990. I was 3 or 4 at that point.
Yeah.
So you can go back to that far and be able to put out a game that is taking all of those old classics and turning it on their head, and let's do a speed run thing with it. And that's cool that they can do that and just say, hey, we're just releasing this thing. You can give us another thing that sells 1 million copies. Right. It's incredible to me that I know it's the only new games really that they put out of note from Nintendo itself, but it's awesome that Mario vs. DK, 1 million copies. Princess Peach Showtime, over 1 million copies as well. It's incredible. The Switch's elasticity with games, the attach rate with games is absolutely ridiculous. Not to mention Princess Peach also it appeals to kids. It's easy for kids to get into, girls can you can pick that up for your daughter, and it's something they can play without much fuss, So yeah, I mean, Randy did that for his daughter to play with him. So
Right.
yeah, man, I think that's cool. But as far as what's coming next for Nintendo, big picture wise, I did mention they're going with that direct in June. They're gonna have announcements. They did, say we still have the two big games. The Paper Mario 1,000 Year Door remake that comes out this month. Actually, next week? And then Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, which comes out next month. But
yeah,
hey, we kind of don't know anything past that. And now I guess they revealed the I guess their big ticket thing for July, which is this Nintendo World Championship thing. But still, like, there's a rest of the year that they got to fill out. So I wonder what that is going to be. Do we finally get the big announcement of Metroid Prime 4 coming? You think that they'll pull that out as like the last Switch game, or you think that's a launch Switch 2 game?
I would say launch Switch 2 game. That's a big if, though. If it even ever comes out, like they could just announce like, hey, it's going to be canceled, or like, we tried, but didn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see it as more of like, okay, this is like the swan song of the Switch. Like, here's Metroid Prime 4. We promised it to you all these years ago. Here we go. I'm pretty sure they could have it come out pretty quick on Switch 2, like after the launch window if they want. We still don't know about is it gonna be backwards compatible or not? Or are they gonna be doing all these $10 upgrade kind of things? We'll definitely see about that. But the Nintendo's president did announce officially now that the Switch will be the Switch 2 will be a next edition of the Switch. It will not, some people were speculating that they're going to try to make something new. He did officially say this is sort of like a next edition of what the Switch is. And it will be at some point announced by the fiscal year. So between now and March 2025, we're going to get the official announcement of the Switch 2. Officially, they call it the Switch Next model. So pretty much like what's all been rumored and speculated about is that it's a Switch 2 with beefier hardware and the DLSS.
They should do is they should rebrand the current Switch as the bottom Switch, and then the next Switch will be the top Switch.
No. I'd say the Super Nintendo Switch would be cool if they name it that. I doubt they would, but I still think that would be an awesome name if they could go with that. But I feel like they're gonna go in the same window as the Switch 1. Like, I think we're getting some kind of a trailer drop or announcement in like October, November, and then get ready for March, April, the Switch 2 comes out of next year. I mean, I guess they could wait until March to announce of next year and then have it come out in the fall, but I feel like Switch 1 coming out not in the fall helped them.
Right.
Or do you think it needs to come out in that like October, November?
No, I actually don't think it should, because it'll create too much of a bottleneck for production and like sales, I mean, they meant like the press of like, oh, the Switch 2 is sold out. But it's like, but
or hey, this holiday season, go get your Switch 2,
Right. But having, the April release date or whatever to give them a lot more runway, because it'll sell out that year anyway.
Right.
So why not have it, sell more if you can?
I feel like they need. Just the Switch 1's launch year is still one of the greatest freaking years. I mean, that year in general was a great year for gaming, but that year for Nintendo was amazing. And I feel like if you have the ability to repeat that again, do that, man, because that sells your system more than anything else. You tell me you were going to have an awesome game every month to go buy for that system, I'm buying it.
Yeah.
Right? You give me a big launch window of saying okay, well, here's your launch games, and then here's like what could be coming in the next 6 months until the holiday of 2025 or whatever, June, and then what they normally do in June where they release the rest of it. Like, yeah, I'm there. I'm there day one. Look, I get it. It's Nintendo. I'm pretty sure you don't have to tell anybody anything. They're gonna buy it. I would buy it anyway, but that helps. That helps a lot of people that are like thinking about, oh well, do we need to buy it right now? There's not a lot. I still got a huge library on my Switch. So look, we still got to find out a lot of things about the Switch too. But the fact that they've already revealed it's gonna be basically a next gen edition model Switch, and then that it is going to get announced at some point between now and March 2025. That's already a plus. They're already announcing things. That's good. We can feel that next gen for Nintendo is coming, and it feels like it really needs to happen because this year's kind of been like that bridge year. Maybe they'll surprise us with a couple of things, but yeah, man, like this, it's good. It's good that we can finally like start saying, okay, it's coming. It's coming for sure.
Right.
Also interesting that like it's crazy. Some of these numbers for some of these games, and how they've sold is absolutely like ridiculous. Like Mario Kart selling close to like 62. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is 62 million. Animal Crossing, the New Horizons game, like 45. Absolutely nuts, man. Breath of the Wild, obviously that was the launch. Zelda up there at like 31, Smash 34, like insane numbers. And the fact that Scarlet and Violet is almost that close to Sword and Shield, and Sword and Shield has still kept selling, it tells you a lot about Pokemon stuff. But still, Nintendo has those franchises that doesn't matter, they just keep selling. People want to buy the console. Take a note, Microsoft, that stuff matters.
Don't worry, once Microsoft releases Blinks to Time Sweeper 3, they'll be right back on track.
Yeah, exactly. That's what everybody is waiting on. But they want that reveal. I mean, can you imagine that's revealed in June? Like, hey, we brought Blinks to Time Sweeper back. Wait till we hear like crickets.
That and Fusion Frenzy.
Well, hey, Fusion Frenzy was good. Don't be hating on Fusion Frenzy now. I love that game. But yeah, I mean, we kind of already talked about the PlayStation thing, but it's good that they reverse course on Helldivers 2.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny though, because last weekend it was the big Sony screw up of like announcing this thing, and then Microsoft was like, hold my beer.
Oh, definitely. Microsoft was like, hold my beer. Like, it's like, how can we step on a rake even more than PlayStation did? It's like, at least PlayStation was able to reverse course fairly quickly. Also funny that the devs were like trying to push for that too. They're like, hey, keep review bombing the game so that
not the dev. It was like one community manager or anything. Got fired for it.
But even like the devs were happy about it. Like they were happy that they reverse course because obviously they're still locked out. Like there's 150 countries that are locked out of the game right now because they have to re-put it back on Steam because they don't have access to PSN. So I don't know what. Yeah,
I was going to say what they should have done with this thing is they should have kept it an optional thing, but they should have also said like, if you sign into a PSN account, we'll give you a new cape and a new helmet, or some type of branded, special helmet or something, because then that would have got people way more into it.
But a lot of countries just don't have it at all.
No, I know that, but then
then
they would have gone through some VPN, or they just would have signed up for some fake account.
And that's the thing with Game Pass as well, is like people don't realize there are so many countries that do not have Game Pass at all. And they make it seem like Game Pass is just everywhere and available on everything, and it's not. But that going back to this for a sec, like just it sucks for those people that lost access to the game. Hopefully they get it back really fast. Good to see that Sony like reverse course on it. Because Sony's always been the one that like they didn't want to do crossplay for a long time because security reasons and whatever. And this is the reasoning that they're going about this as well, is saying that they need it to be able to protect you and all this stuff. Like, I think they kind of just got to understand that PC gaming is different. And you're gonna have to just kind of let that stuff go. At least with these multiplayer games. I mean, I know that also means like Ghost of Tsushima on PC is like locked out for people too, which that sucks.
Right.
But like, is it worth it to do this if you're gonna limit the amount of people that can play your game, that only want to buy it on PC, that don't want to go buy the big PlayStation thing to buy it because it might be triple the cost in their country and they already have a PC to play the game on? Like, I think Sony needs to be more aware of those kind of things.
Right.
But even then, like, look at the difference. They just have somebody come out, make a PR statement. We're sorry, we change it. We don't have to have Phil or Aaron Greenberg or Matt Booty come on and do some podcast where they have to talk about why they did it and all this stuff. Like, we'll need some big ass explanation. Just, hey, we changed it. Sorry, we're not going to do it. Move on.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where Xbox needs to get to. Is I appreciate the transparency, but when y'all were like lying out of your ass half the time, I'm not saying they're lying, but I'm just saying, like, when y'all are contradicting yourselves constantly, I just don't want to hear it anymore. But good on PlayStation for doing that, and hopefully these people that did have access at one point to the game can get it again. Speaking of having access to things, Persona 5, the Phantom X, which is the mobile game, the Persona spin-off game that's on iOS, Android, and PC in selected Asian countries. Sega is considering making that a bit available more globally going forward. Obviously, the power of Persona, especially with Persona 3 hitting that million selling number really fast, which is the highest, the quickest any Atlus game has ever done that. Would you play it if they put a Persona game on PC for you?
No, because Atlus has a pretty bad track record, at least they used to, of ditching their online games pretty quickly. Like, I don't know if you know this, there used to actually be a Shin Megami Tensei MMO like
No,
15 years ago.
Really?
I played it. It was bad. I mean, I played it. It came out in America.
Yeah.
It wasn't some like Japanese thing or anything, but I think it lasted like a year, if that. And then they're like, this is not turning out well.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, it looks cool from the pictures and stuff I've seen. Like, I think a lot of people, it being Persona, I think it would get people to play.
Yeah, the MMO is called Shin Megami Tensei Imagine.
Oh, nice.
And I guess it did last a little longer than I thought, but like it wasn't good, and it was like, this is bad and weird. And
yeah, I mean, this isn't made by the P5 or the P team.
Right.
This is made by the Perfect World Games, but they're pretty well known for doing PC stuff. So if they did release it, I think it would do well for them. How much it's going to cost to do all that and the translation and everything else, we'll see.
Yeah.
If they actually end up doing it or not. From Software, Miyazaki was doing an interview with a Chinese site talking about that there are no plans for further DLC beyond Shadow of the Erdtree that's coming out next month actually. But they're not ruling out an Elden Ring 2. They don't want to like shut the door on doing more with it. Just like he says he didn't want to do with Dark Souls either. They just kind of wanted to kind of close the chapter on that point and then leave it open for other stuff. You think we are eventually going to get an Elden Ring 2, or?
I mean, it's one of the most successful games of the past 5 years. Yeah, I think we're gonna get Elden Ring 2.
But I feel like they're going to make something else, and then there's going to be an Elden Ring 2. I don't think they're going to just go from this expansion to Elden Ring 2. Or you?
They'll finally make Kuon too.
Yes. I mean, I guess they could go do Dark Souls 4 or something, maybe. But then that starts the whole like.
I don't think so, because I think Elden Ring far eclipses Dark Souls as a franchise, or at least as far as like name recognition and like gameplay mechanics. So
Well, plus you got like it's not this thing where people got to feel like, oh man, I got to play the other Dark Souls games to be able to understand what's going on with this game. Whereas like
Right.
Elden Ring is like, oh, it's the first one, so I don't have to. I just play Elden Ring, right?
Yeah.
I think you got that stigma on it too. I mean, there's always Bloodborne too for those people that
They don't own that completely. So
well, they don't, but I'm pretty sure Sony's not gonna. Sony own parts of FromSoft, so they're not gonna say no to that either.
All right.
But it'd be good if we see it. But the obviously we got to see how Shadow of the Erdtree did, which I'm sure it will do amazing numbers, just like the original game. Plus, it helps that it's like $20 cheaper or $30 from what games come out now.
Oh, plus, like once the Erdtree DLC comes out, like later in the year, they can announce like, well, I don't think it's later. I think they already announced like the Elden Ring Game of the Year edition or whatever that has the DLC baked in. So
I'm sure they will do that. They will have a bundle you can buy digitally, all that stuff. I'm sure as well. So get ready for that. And I guess lastly, just to show where gaming is at this quarter of the year, Newzoo, who we've talked about before, is likes to do like market tracking and like tracking like revenue for games and stuff. And they kind of use the United States and then like Europeans, like best, top 5 markets, UK, Germany, France, Spain, Italy, to kind of like show where kind of what's tracking as like the big things in gaming. No surprise, Fortnite is number 1. With EA Sports being FC24 being right there at number 2, but Helldivers 2 is number 3, above everything Call of Duty, NBA 2K, Madden. Dragon's Dogma 2 is number 6, which that's a pretty good indicator like how well Dragon's Dogma 2 has been received. Power World right there, and Valorant as well, with like Rainbow Six Siege and stuff like that in there. Surprised that like Dragon's Dogma 2 is
not really. I mean, it's kind of a niche title, but people have been wanting Dragon's Dogma 2 for a while now. So
yeah, it shows that like the hype wasn't just even though I mean there was a hype cycle and then it kind of feels like it died a bit. People are still playing it, right? People are really got into it. Very much. It wasn't consistent like Helldivers 2 has been, or Power World was for like that month or so, month and a half. But it shows that it made a big enough impact to like be up there. And those. I mean, it helps that it's on all the consoles, right? Like I wonder if Rebirth had been on other places besides PlayStation 5, that it'd be on there too. But it does show, hey, again, multiplayer games, games that draw an audience. This is what's big, and you can see why all these companies are chasing that stuff. They want to be, the big trackers, big number getters. And again, that's why Microsoft's being very protective of Call of Duty, because it's still up there at number 4, even though Helldivers 2's got more press. Fortnite, obviously, that's just a game for everyone, and EA Sports FC is what it is. So, yeah, you can see why Microsoft is guarded about that, but we'll see what they finally do with it at the end. I forgot to mention Sarah Bond did note that again, the whole all these games are going to go in Game Pass not go anywhere, but we'll see. We'll see what ends up actually happening with that. There's only more months in the year to find out more things Microsoft's going to wind up doing. But yeah, anything else? I mean, do you want to, I guess, talk about your adventure with the Knuckles TV show?
No, I only watched the first 2.5, or like I just got to like the episode that is pretty widely reviled as like Knuckles is barely in it, where it's like the family.
Okay.
So I haven't watched that yet. I like the British lady, the evil British lady in the show. She's pretty cute. And the problem is I don't think that main guy, Adam Pally, is like good in large doses. Like,
he's not James Morrison.
Right. Like he works as in the Sonic movies as like, 5-minute character, or if that,
right,
but not 20 minutes long or anything like that. I thought it would have been funny in the Sonic show, I mean in the Knuckles show, if like Idris Elba was actually in it as like himself. Like that was
Okay, yeah.
that would have been good to me. Like that would
I'm
have been like an
surprised that
excellent
they thought about that, but I wonder how much more it cost them to have him physically in it, as
right.
opposed to just his voice. That's probably one of the decisions that got made there
Right.
with that.
But it's okay. I mean, I guess it's okay.
Yeah.
Like it's funny because I saw that the Kotaku just released a thing up like the top worst to best Sonic adaptations in like live action and cartoons, and Knuckles is like dead last, and it's like, no, have you
Yeah.
seen that Sonic Boom cartoon? Like,
Where do
or
they rank
Sonic,
the Sonic Boom cartoon?
they ranked that like really high. It was like baffling because I'm like, what the hell you got? What?
I remember
Or
watching I watched that cartoon as a kid. So
Sonic Boom?
yeah,
That was like that's pretty recent. Like that was like
yeah.
10
But
years
I
ago.
remember like watching that, and then I remember watching like the Sonic X
Yeah,
show. Or
they ranked that the best.
really,
Yeah,
wow,
over the two movies or the old cartoons.
that's nuts.
They ranked Sonic Boom number 3, by the way.
Wow,
Yeah.
says a lot.
Yep. One thing I'll mention, I beat Stellar Blade, so I'm happy about that.
Okay,
And I got 2 of the 3 endings.
what do you think about it now that you beat it?
It's good. The last 2 bosses are actually really hard, so I had to bump it down to like easy mode because I'm like, it's like I don't want to keep banging my head against this. I wish there are gameplay deficiencies in that game a little because some of the areas don't have maps, so it really sucks
Okay, I heard
to
of
get
that.
around.
Yeah.
And then
I wonder
there's
why a
no
decision was made for that. Like, why do you have maps in certain areas and then not?
well because like those areas are more like linear.
Okay,
So it kind of makes sense a little, but also like if you can't like it's like oh I'm trying to find this one document, but it's like I don't know where this is because I can't just like fast travel to the nearest map or whatever. It's like I gotta like watch this dumb video on YouTube and figure out where this thing is, and hope I can get there. Uh, and then there's no for a game that really does pride itself on collecting shit. It doesn't have a great collection like system, like tracking system. Like it has it for some stuff like documents and memory sticks and the cans, but it's like one of the trophies is like open 200 boxes. It's like okay, why don't you tell me how many boxes are in a zone, and then I can start clicking this off. Or like one of the trophies is like, oh, max out your health and magic meter basically. But there's like not a good way to like see even like what it is or like, where if any of the collectibles are in a location or not.
yeah.
Thankfully, I was able to do all that shit in my first run. I drove myself nuts doing it, but I did it. So the second run, and you do have to do a new game plus to get the
Yeah, I saw that. It's not just like
trophy,
continuing it. Yeah.
which is fine because the second run is a lot easier.
Yeah, you already know how to, but you have to go through everything again, right? But you're not having to like really explore all that because you already got everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's cool. But I like the game quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
I
get
don't
back
even think
to it here probably.
it's not like my game of the year or anything, but it'll probably make a top 10 list so far, or at least for me.
Yeah, it might for me too. I'm gonna try to get back to it more this week. I haven't been playing much again this week, but next week I will definitely get to that. But speaking of next week, let's look at what is going to be out in the week.
He says hi.
Hello, Valo. How are you doing? Oh, that's cute. Yes, let's get on with what is coming out here. So basically, if you haven't played Ghost of Tsushima yet and you want to get it on PC, and you're not one of the countries that it's locked out in, you can go buy that next week on the 16th.
I'd be curious playing it on PC if I could, or like, because I'm sure it'd look a lot better than on a little better than PS5.
I mean, it would look great on PS5. So, but yeah, I imagine getting all the nice frame rates and great graphics will look good there.
Yeah.
The Neptunia game maker R Evolution comes to the PlayStation and Switch there. So, if you most people that like these games, you already know when that's coming. Like we had a Sis Scott that's been on here before, and he watches the show sometimes live. He's like the big guy that like reviews it all the time for Outer Haven. So I'm sure he's already probably like playing this game if I'm right about that. You also got aside from that, the Ghost of Tsushima that I mentioned. Yeah. Read Only Memories Neurodiver is also coming out the 16th as well. More Neptunia stuff is coming, I think, before we do the show again. Like a bunch of like all the Hyperdimension games are coming to Switch, and then the Sisters game is also coming to Xbox. So yeah, and System Shock. It's not going to be long. We're going to be talking about like not next week, but the week after. We'll be getting to play Hellblade 2 and the System Shock remake. So
and Homeworld 3, I think, out now or like out next week or something.
Yeah, Paper Mario game's out that week too. So I was wrong. It's that same week that Hellblade 2 and System Shock remake come out. But still, some things coming towards the end of the month. We gotta, let's see if Ghost of Tsushima wants up something. Well, Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. I forgot that comes out. The next Annapurna joint that looks all freaking crazy. Is coming to Switch and PC. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for this week. Thank you everybody that watched live. Thank you, Crafty. He says that you have a cute cat.
Yep,
Mark, and
he knows it too.
Oh yeah, he's I don't have mine in the room. My dog is over here, but she will not. I'd rather not wake her up. So we'll see you guys next week.
Yep.
And until then,
have a good one.
Bye.